A lot worse in England at first because they had no defenses. And they went over, well, I recall one instance of where they had put 120 B-17s up and 60 of them came home.
So, Dad, I'm looking through this blue book, as John calls it, and John had asked you the question about casualties as far as manpower and aircraft power, and just as a FYI for you, this thing said it gives the what was on hand at the beginning of each month, and there's 4 or 5 pages going from from February through April, May, and June, and it says on average there were about 4,500 combat personnel on hand at the beginning of the month, and total losses equal about 4,400 people. So it says every sortie that went up 15 to 17% of the men didn't come back.
That's probably true.
And it's like that at each thing, and the aircraft too. They would lose in typical in any month's time, lose by 20% of the aircraft in the time that you were stationed over there. Man.
To back up a little bit, the first combat aircraft training I had was in a B-17. And I had about 100 hours in that thing. And they sent me to Tucson. And we were going into Tucson on the train. And we passed the airfield, which was Davis-Monthan Army Airfield. And there were these B-24s out there on the ramp. And we said amongst ourselves, what the hell is that thing? It was a weird looking airplane in its day. But it turned out to be a good one. It brought me home.
I have one final question. Can you just describe what the flak felt like and looked like as you flew through it?
God, it looked horrible. Most flak batteries consisted of 4 cannons, and they all fired simultaneously. And when they burst, these 4 anti-aircraft shells would burst in black smoke, and it would just be black, 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 black. And you knew there was stuff flying out of them, so you tightened up your butt and just hung onto the cushion for all you were worth till you got through it. And most of us got through it. But it was a tough sight to see one of your buddies or acquaintances spiral down like that. The seats not get out of them. But I didn't have that experience, thank the Lord.
So when you went up, do you have a parachute on the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay.
We used to use in the bombers what they call chest packs, and the chute was in front of you.
You never did jump out though.
No.
Did you ever practice parachuting
Yes.
from I mean, not just from a tower, but from a plane?
No.
Just to practice from the tower.
No, I wasn't going to get out of an airplane unless it was on fire.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
once you told me once that what's the good of jumping out of a perfectly operational aircraft?
Not when you're a pilot. If you're in the if that's your job, you need to be able to do it well. What was I mean, was your mother your mother was of Italian extraction, wasn't she?
Yes.
How did she feel about you being stationed in Italy?
She never mentioned it.
Did you enjoy enjoy any of the experience of being in Italy,
Oh, yeah.
other than the camaraderie?
Yeah. Yeah. Got go to various places in Italy on official business, and spent a week in a rest center on the Mediterranean, which was a resort that they'd taken over for that purpose. I enjoyed that week. Had my first taste of octopus.
Yeah, that can be quite an experience.
It wasn't bad.
It's much better than you would think. So that was a resort that was just for officers?
Yes.
Okay, that's very nice, Jim, just officers at a resort. And in the town that you were stationed in, were you, I assume you were allowed to go out and walk around the town
Yeah.
when you were off duty?
A very small town, not much there, but it was good to get out and walk around.
Okay. Did you enjoy the food?
Most of my food was Army food. It wasn't too enjoyable.
Well, I mean, if you went out walking around town, could you go into an Italian restaurant
You could,
and say, I'm going to get some decent food for a change?
you could, I didn't.
But that that had to be quite an experience for everybody serving in Europe, is getting a little bit of the flavor of what many of their ancestors.
One of the
Had
things
had.
that was good was the wine was good over there. And we had a 5-gallon jug, which got filled for $1.25.
Well, I hope it lasts you at least a night. So, but that was probably something you were sharing with a number of
Oh, yeah.
people.
One of the things that was good, I always enjoyed, when you got back from a mission, you got a shot of whiskey.
You needed it.
And most of us saved it up until we had a fairly good quantity of it, and then hung one on.
Well, the good thing is that all your missions were planned missions, so it's not like
Oh,
you
yeah.
had to suddenly run out on the tarmac and get your planes to go fight off an attack.
No, it was meticulously planned with road maps and charts and estimates of the time it would take to fly the mission, where the anti-aircraft guns were, and
So-
other details that helped us.
Are the movies that you see about World War II correct in that before you'd have a mission like this, you'd all get into a briefing room and discuss the mission?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so that's fairly accurate.
So at what level were you bombing from? How many feet up?
Generally 20,000 to about 24,000.
And how would you describe the level of accuracy?
Few. There was no level of accuracy. We did what was called carpet bombing. You had a lead bombardier navigator that took over the lead airplane, and the squadron, of course, stayed with him. When we got to the drop point, when the lead airplane dropped its bombs, everybody dropped its bombs. So it would just be a carpet of bombs on the ground. That's why they call it carpet bombing.
Do you remember how many pieces of ordnance were on how many you dropped?
Normally, our loads were 500-pound bombs. We carried 12 of them.
12 of them, okay.
1,000-pound bombs, we only carried 6.
Now, Harry, was that an automatic system, or did somebody have to move each bomb into position, roll it into position to be dropped manually?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's not like you could, like, they didn't come out all at once. You dropped one, then somebody had to roll the second one into position and
Oh,
drop
no,
that.
no. If it was a 500 pounders, there were bomb racks in the bomb bay, and each bomb hooked onto a device, I don't know what it was called. And when the bombardier dropped them, if he was going to drop them in sequence, he dropped what was called a salvo. In the salvo, they all went out. If we were trying to do individual bombing, he could trigger them out one at a time. Or he'd set up. Actually, they were dropped by the bomb site, the very famous Norden bomb site, which calculated all that stuff.
And tried to make it more accurate, but it didn't quite work.
Didn't quite work. We bombed many a hayfield, I'm sure.
Many a veal cutlet was cut short.
I'm ready.
All right. Now let's jump back to you're back home. You're discharged. You've come back to Richmond. How did you and Ida meet?
I went to a dance in the basement of what was then the mosque.
I've done that myself.
It was RPI then, I believe. And I met a young lady when I was dancing. And she said, I've got a good friend coming to town tomorrow. There's another dance the following night. Do you know of anyone who would date her? I said, here. So I met Ida on a blind date.
Who was it? Was it Marianne?
No. It was Jean Ray.
Right.
Jean and Ida were friends. Somehow, I'm not sure. Well, I think Ida knew her because she worked in Richmond for a while. Because during the war, the patent office came to Richmond. And I think they met there, became friends, and stayed friends until Jean died.
When was that? When did you meet Mom? And
Probably about 45.
okay.
And we dated back and forth for years, and finally she forced me to marry her.
So Jean introduced you, but you said that she said, I have a friend who's coming to town. Was Ida still living in Washington at the time?
Yes.
Okay.
And we've heard stories over the years of how the Mahone family welcomed newcomers
boy.
into the family. Was it as gracious as we've heard?
It was pretty rough.
Have you got any stories you want to share?
Well, I drove up there to visit her, and took a wrong turn, and I found out I was on the wrong road. So I found the right road, and they were operating the store at the time. And I went in the store, and everybody ignored me. So I finally asked, is this where Ida Mahone lived? And they assured me that it was. And they took me in the living room and set me down on a very hard seat and left me there.
Do you remember who that was? Who the men were?
No, I don't.
Okay.
All right. When you say the living room, is that to the right of the store in that side building?
It was a part of the main house. If you went in the front door and went through the store, you would go into the living room.
Okay, that was the living room, because I'm somewhat confused, but what was the living room and what was the den? So that was the in the main building.
Right.
There was no.
Yeah.
Well, what was on the first floor of the side building?
I recall the,
You go in through that door on the side, and that would go through the house, and then there was a bedroom upstairs and the kitchen in the back, and then I understand there was another room on the first floor. What was that called?
that was called the fire room,
Oh, the far room. You're right, the far room. And what was the far room used for?
bedroom.
Oh, that was a bedroom.
Yeah, it was a bedroom.
Okay. So there's a bedroom upstairs and a bedroom downstairs.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. So,
There were 2 bedrooms upstairs, as I recall. Or were there 3?
3.
I think there were 3,
Yeah.
you're right.
in that building?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then 3 in the main building too.
I don't remember.
No.
One building.
Yeah, that discussion, in the modern times, there really is only one building. There was a shed attached to the store, but there was no real separate building.
Oh, no, not separate. I'm just saying it's sort of a L shape, and you've got the store building, and then you have a separate entrance on the right.
Right.
And that's what I'm thinking. Do those two you couldn't get from
Yeah.
one to the other? Could you get from one to the other on the second floor?
No.
No, not on the
Okay.
second floor.
So you had to go down to the first floor to get to that other. That's why I think of it as sort of a different building.
No, it was an added, as I understand it, the original building was the building that the store was in.
That's what I would thought.
And then they added the 2, I guess they added the kitchen and the upstairs bedroom, because at that time, which was before my time, the kitchen was a separate building.
Right. And so they connected the kitchen and built these extra rooms at the same time.
I didn't know that.
But that was just for additional bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so there was only just the one den, and that's where some unknown person, well, that would have, gosh, I'm trying to think who would even still have been around at that point. Unless,
Before
Unless it
I
was
got in
David.
there, some of the original wives of Mr. Mahone had raised 5 or 6 children there, and some of them were still left before the time that I got involved.
yeah, because
Well, it was Ken Law and Philip and Nelson and
John.
well, John had died. Philip might have still lived there. Nelson would have lived in Charlottesville.
Kinlaw.
And Kinlaw would have lived in Charlottesville at that point. So
Could it have been Uncle Robert and
no,
Uncle Frank?
none of them were living there. Well, Uncle Frank was still, no, he had married. There were none of the original children living there.
Oh, okay. So
when
they
I-
were just visiting, not
well,
living.
Philip lived there in Massey's Mill
Okay.
with Margaret and his son Philip. So they were at least close by and may have spent a lot of time at the store. I'm not sure. Philip may have had a job working in Massey's Mill. I forget whether he was with the railroad or not.
Now, Philip, I think, worked for what they call the mill. It was a plant that was in, well, it was just north of Massey's Mill, and they mined rutile up there. And I think he worked for that plant. But Philip died when I was still courting Ida.
Yeah, because I know. Yeah, I knew he died before I was. I think all of them except for Kinlaw died before I was born. And so John or I would not have never known any of them other than Kinlaw and Evelyn.
So how did they? So keep on going about meeting Mom and courting Mom.
Mom had moved back to Alexandria because her patent office had gone back to Washington. And she did most of the commuting. A lot of the guys that worked for the patent office still had their families in Richmond. And they would go to Washington and work and then go home on weekends. And she would hitch a ride with them. And we would meet somewhere right on the suburbs of Richmond, mostly at Wright's Restaurant out on the intersection of Brook Road and US 1. And so we'd meet there, or we'd meet down at the White Tower down on Lombard and Broad, or whatever. And she commuted for a long time.
Harry, was that Wright's Restaurant about where Azalea Mall used to be?
It was near there.
At Azalea Avenue and Brook Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, Azalea and Brook. I remember that. Gosh, there's a drugstore there now.
Sorry.
We'll have a brief musical interlude.
Okay.
And I've always imagined that the roads between Richmond and Nelson County must have been atrocious back then. Was 250? What road would you normally have taken to even get from Richmond to
I would
Massachusetts?
take 60.
Take 60, okay. Because I
Up to
remember
Amherst
taking that.
and then cut over on the road I don't remember. And finally on 56, I think, which took me to Massey's Mill.
Okay. So 250 was not the road of choice even then.
No,
And so you met on Ida in what month and year again?
I think it was in 45, but I don't remember what month it was.
And when did you get married?
We got married in November the 25th of 1950.
That's correct.
And I'm not trying to compress that period of time, but you were saying yesterday, I believe, or earlier today, I can't remember, about your Korean War experience where you went to California. So can you kind of describe from the time you got married to the time